Admiral Cross of the Kryvax Empire stood aboard his command ship, his crystalline eyes fixed on the holographic projection of Earth. His species had conquered 12 systems across the galaxy, but this peculiar planet had proven remarkably resilient to conventional invasion strategies. Their latest intelligence suggested an unexpected weakness: settlements they called retirement communities. High Commander, his strategic advisor Vex approached, antenna twitching with excitement. Our analysis indicates these compounds housed their eldest population. The humans inexplicably devote significant resources to maintaining these non-combatants. Kraw's scaled fingers danced across the tactical display, highlighting thousands of such communities across the planet. Fascinating. They cluster their most vulnerable in isolated locations, away from their military installations. A critical strategic error. Meanwhile, at Pine Valley Retirement Village, former Admiral Regina Thompson sat in her favorite rocking chair on the wraparound porch, studying the evening sky through her birdwatching binoculars, actually military-grade optics she'd kept from her service days. At 75, she maintained the sharp mind that had once commanded the Pacific Fleet. "Margaret," she called to her neighbor, a former CIA cryptanalyst, "would you kindly verify what I'm seeing in Sector 7? Margaret Wells, 68, grabbed her own birdwatching equipment and scanned the designated area. Well, Margaret mused, her voice carrying decades of experience analyzing foreign threats. "Those aren't our boys' experimental aircraft, are they?" "Negative," Regina replied, already reaching for her encrypted satellite phone, another souvenir from her service days. "Those formation patterns match nothing in Earth's current aerospace capabilities." Inside the community center, former Master Sergeant James O'Neill was teaching his weekly chair yoga class, really a cover for maintaining combat readiness among the residents. The average age in his class was 72, but their combined military experience exceeded 3 centuries. The emergency phone in his pocket vibrated, a special frequency Regina had established months ago. One glance at the message, and James smoothly transitioned from yoga instructor to tactical commander. "Ladies and gentlemen," he announced calmly, "it appears today's session will include our contingency protocols. Please retrieve your emergency kits from the storage room." These weren't ordinary emergency kits. Hidden beneath the standard Red Cross supplies, each container held sophisticated communication equipment, tactical gear, and various retirement projects that would have raised eyebrows at any other senior living facility. Above the Earth, Admiral Cross finalized his invasion plan. "Begin with these 3 locations," he ordered, highlighting retirement communities in Florida, Arizona, and New Mexico. "Minimal defense capabilities, high strategic value for establishing ground control. These elderly humans will serve as perfect hostages to ensure their military forces stand down." "Sir," Vex interjected, "our cultural research indicates they call these elderly ones grandparents. They appear to hold ceremonial status but pose no tactical threat." Kraw's mandibles clicked in satisfaction. "Excellent. Prepare the drop ships. By targeting these seemingly defenseless locations, we'll demonstrate our tactical superiority while minimizing our own casualties." After all, he added with a dismissive wave of his upper appendage, what threat could a collection of human grandparents possibly pose to the mighty Kryvax Empire? Back at Pine Valley, Regina had assembled her core team in the basement of the community center. The room, officially designated as the Crafts and Hobbies Storage, housed one of the most sophisticated civilian command centers on Earth. "Ladies and gentlemen," Regina addressed the gathered veterans, her voice carrying the weight of command she'd never truly left behind, "it appears our retirement is about to become a bit more interesting. Margaret's analysis confirms we have multiple bogies on approach, configuration unknown to Earth forces." James pulled up a tactical display on what appeared to be an ancient television set. "Based on their descent vectors, they're targeting retirement communities across the Sunbelt. They think we're soft targets." Soft laughter rippled through the room. These men and women had spent decades serving in every branch of the military, intelligence community, and special operations. They'd chosen Pine Valley not for its golf course or bingo nights, but because they'd recognized kindred spirits among its residents. Well then, Regina smiled, the same smile that had once preceded some of the most successful naval operations in modern history. I suppose it's time to show our visitors why you should never underestimate a grandparent who still remembers their security clearance codes. James, implement protocol knitting circle. Margaret, activate our sleeper network. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to active duty. As the alien ships began their final approach, they remained completely unaware that their soft targets had already mobilized a defense network that spanned continents orchestrated by people who'd spent their entire lives preparing for moments exactly like this. The only question was, who would be more surprised, the aliens discovering their error, or the world learning that their retirement communities housed some of the most formidable tactical minds of the century? The first Kryvax drop ships descended through Earth's atmosphere with precision, their stealth systems rendering them nearly invisible to conventional radar. Nearly invisible wasn't good enough for the surveillance system Margaret Wells had quietly installed throughout Pine Valley over the past 5 years, disguised as an elaborate collection of weather vanes and garden ornaments. 3 vessels, attack configuration, Margaret announced, her fingers flying over what appeared to be an ancient typewriter but was actually a quantum-encrypted communication device. Estimated touchdown in 6 minutes on the East Golf Course. Regina Thompson stood at the command center's main table, surrounded by former military officers who'd traded their uniforms for comfortable slacks and polo shirts. Status report on protocol knitting circle. All residents accounted for and in position, James O'Neill replied, coordinating through his hearing aid, actually a sophisticated command and control device. Teams Alpha through Echo are deploying countermeasures. The Bridge Club has activated their special equipment. The Bridge Club consisted of former special operations personnel who'd maintained their skills through weekly card games that were actually tactical planning sessions. Their special equipment had been disguised as everyday items scattered throughout the community, walking canes that concealed advanced electronic warfare devices, golf bags hiding portable defense systems, and garden tools that could disrupt alien technology. Above them, Admiral Cross watched the deployment with satisfaction. Initial scans show minimal electronic activity, Vex reported. Just the expected level of primitive entertainment devices and medical equipment. Excellent, Cross replied. Begin Phase 1, secure the perimeter and establish control over their communal gathering spaces. Remember, minimal force. We want these elderly humans intact as leverage. The first drop ship landed on the perfectly manicured 9th hole, its engines barely disturbing the grass. The Kryvax warriors emerged, their biomechanical armor gleaming in the morning sun. Squad leader Tekrix activated his cultural database and began broadcasting in English. Attention elderly humans. Your facility is now under the protection of the Kryvax Empire. Please proceed to your dining hall for registration and assignment of provisional citizen status. From her position in the community center, Regina allowed herself a small smile. Status of the welcome wagon. Ready and eager, James replied. The welcome wagon was their code name for a sophisticated electromagnetic pulse system disguised as the community's sprinkler network. They'd spent months calibrating it to target specific technological signatures while leaving Earth-based electronics unaffected. The aliens advanced cautiously, their sensors detecting nothing more threatening than cardiac pacemakers and electric mobility scooters. They passed Mrs. Eleanor Blackwood tending to her roses. At 82, the former electronic warfare specialist gave them a sweet, grandmotherly smile while pressing what appeared to be a gardening timer. Instantly, the aliens' advanced targeting systems began displaying contradictory information. Their motion trackers showed hundreds of targets moving at impossible speeds, while their threat assessment algorithms crashed trying to process the conflicting data. Status report. Tekrix demanded as his squad's communications filled with static. Unknown interference, his technical specialist replied. Their primitive technology shouldn't be capable of this level of disruption. Inside the community center, Regina's team watched through their surveillance network as confusion spread through the alien ranks. Ms. Blackwood's electronic warfare suite is performing admirably, Margaret noted. Shall we proceed with Phase 2? Regina nodded. Signal the Quilting Circle. The Quilting Circle was their nickname for a group of former military engineers who'd spent their retirement creating devices that looked exactly like standard retirement community equipment but functioned as sophisticated weapons. Their crowning achievement was the Electric Wheelchair Defense Grid, a network of modified mobility scooters that could deploy an electromagnetic containment field. As the aliens struggled with their malfunctioning equipment, dozens of elderly residents emerged from various buildings, each slowly pushing a walker or riding a scooter. The Kryvax warriors barely paid attention to them, exactly as planned. Look at them, Vex commented from orbit, shuffling about in their mobility devices. Completely harmless. Admiral Kraz wasn't so sure. Something about the elderly human's movement pattern seemed deliberate. But before he could voice his concerns, the situation on the ground changed dramatically. The harmless elderly humans had positioned themselves in a precise pattern around the alien squad. James pressed what looked like a TV remote control, and suddenly every mobility scooter and walker activated simultaneously, generating an energy field that trapped the Kryvax warriors in a dome of crackling electromagnetic energy. Impossible! Tekrix shouted as his squad's advanced armor systems began to shut down. These are primitive retirement devices. Actually, Regina's voice came through their compromised communication system. They're the result of decades of military research and development, disguised as medical equipment. You really should have checked our resident service records before assuming we were defenseless. As the aliens stood immobilized, surrounded by smiling elderly humans in what appeared to be regular civilian clothes, Admiral Kraz watched in disbelief from orbit. Somehow, his elite warriors had just been outmaneuvered and captured by a group of grandparents. Admiral Kraz paced his command deck, his crystalline eyes flickering with barely contained rage. Send in the heavy assault units. I want that retirement facility secured within the hour. Down on Earth, Regina Thompson watched the new wave of drop ships entering the atmosphere through her tactical display. They're escalating, just as expected, she announced to her command team. Margaret, initiate Operation Bingo Night. Operation Bingo Night had nothing to do with the popular retirement home game. It was the codename for their most sophisticated defense strategy, developed by a team of retired quantum physicists who'd spent their careers working on classified military projects. All units, activate your quantum resonators, James O'Neill commanded through the facility's hidden communication network. Throughout Pine Valley, dozens of innocent-looking wind chimes began emitting precise frequencies that would play havoc with the aliens' navigation systems. The Kryvax heavy assault ships descended through thick cloud cover, their weapons primed. But something was wrong. Their targeting systems showed the retirement community in 17 different locations simultaneously, each reading equally real to their sensors. Multiple spatial anomalies detected, Vex reported nervously. Sir, these readings, they're impossible for this level of civilization. Nothing is impossible, Kraz snarled. Land at all coordinates. Crush their resistance with overwhelming force. In the community center's command bunker, Margaret Wells smiled as she monitored the aliens' confusion through her surveillance network. They're splitting their forces, exactly as predicted. Former Professor Jenkins's quantum interference field is performing beautifully. Professor Jenkins, who sat nearby adjusting what appeared to be a hearing aid but was actually a quantum field modulator, nodded in satisfaction. Amazing what you can accomplish with 40 years of classified research and plenty of retirement time to perfect it. The Kryvax forces landed in scattered groups across the area, each believing they'd found the Real Pine Valley. Instead, they found themselves facing a series of ingeniously crafted traps and defenses, all disguised as ordinary retirement community fixtures. The swimming pool, which hadn't contained actual water in months, activated its gravimetric disruption field, leaving an entire squad of alien warriors floating helplessly in midair. The shuffleboard courts concealed a network of sonic emitters that could disable alien combat armor with precisely calculated frequencies. Even the bingo hall had been transformed into a sophisticated electronic warfare center, its number board actually a powerful quantum computer running combat algorithms. Status report, Regina demanded as chaos erupted across the battlefield. Team Mahjong has disabled their eastern flank, James reported. The Mahjong players were actually former Special Forces operators who'd maintained their hand-to-hand combat skills through daily exercise classes. The Garden Club has their Western units contained, Margaret added. These retired combat engineers had turned their horticultural tools into devastating anti-armor weapons. Their fertilizer sprayers now deployed smart nanites that could disable alien technology on contact. From orbit, Admiral Cross watched in growing horror as his elite forces were systematically neutralized by what appeared to be elderly humans using retirement home equipment. His tactical display showed impossible readings, quantum fluctuations, gravity anomalies, and energy signatures that shouldn't exist in a primitive retirement facility. Sir, Beck's voice trembled slightly, I've completed a detailed analysis of the facility's residents. They're not just elderly humans. They're retired military personnel. Scientists. Engineers. Special Forces operators. Each with decades of experience in advanced warfare. Regina's voice crackled through their compromised communications system. I believe it's time we had a serious discussion about your invasion plans, Admiral. Perhaps over tea. We serve it every afternoon at 4, though I suspect your forces won't last that long against our bocce ball team's latest deployment. The bocce ball team had just activated their quantum-entangled containment system, effectively trapping the remaining Kryvax forces in a series of localized time dilation fields. The aliens found themselves moving at a fraction of normal speed, their advanced weapons useless against an enemy they couldn't reach. Admiral, Regina continued, her voice carrying the weight of decades of command experience, you should know that Pine Valley isn't unique. There are thousands of retirement communities across this planet, each filled with veterans who never really retired, we just got better at disguising our capabilities. Would you like to surrender now, or should we show you what our shuffleboard team can really do? In the silence that followed, the only sound was the gentle tinkling of quantum-enhanced wind chimes and the soft whirring of weaponized mobility scooters moving into position for their final maneuver. Admiral Krause's defeat at Pine Valley sparked a revolution across Earth's retirement communities. Within hours, Regina Thompson's encrypted broadcast reached every senior living facility on the planet. Operation Early Bird is a go. Time to show them what the golden years really mean. At Sunset Meadows in Arizona, retired Colonel Howard Barrett activated his facility's defense grid, disguised as a series of solar panels. In Florida, the residents of Peaceful Pines unleashed their aqua aerobics team, actually Navy SEALs who'd never stopped training. The Desert Springs community in New Mexico revealed that their famous mineral spa was a cover for an advanced electromagnetic warfare center. Status update, Regina commanded from Pine Valley's control center. Margaret's fingers danced across her quantum-encrypted console. 17 Kryvax assault groups neutralized across North America. European retirement communities reporting similar successes. The Brisbane Silver Living Centre just captured 3 drop ships using their modified lawn bowling equipment. James O'Neill coordinated the global response through what appeared to be a simple crossword puzzle book, actually a tactical command interface. The Kryvax didn't just underestimate one retirement community, he reported. They overlooked an entire generation of veterans who spent their careers preparing for exactly this kind of threat. In orbit, Admiral Krause watched in horror as his invasion force crumbled. Each retirement community revealed itself to be a sophisticated military installation in disguise. Bingo halls transformed into command centers. Garden sheds concealed weapon systems. Even the seemingly harmless craft supplies turned out to be components of advanced defense technology. Sir, Beck's voice shook, we're detecting quantum signatures from every major retirement community on the planet. They're not just defending, they're coordinating. The Tuesday Bridge Club network activated, linking thousands of retired intelligence officers and military strategists across the globe. These veterans had spent decades sharing intelligence through seemingly innocent card games and social media posts about grandchildren. Regina's voice echoed through the Kryvax command channel, "Perhaps now you understand, Admiral. Every shuffleboard court, every bingo hall, every early bird special, they weren't signs of weakness. They were cover for the most experienced military force your empire has ever faced." Across Earth, retirement communities revealed their true nature. The Morning Glory Craft Circle turned out to be a think tank of former DARPA scientists. The Sunset Valley Chess Club was actually a special operations planning cell. Even the weekly water aerobics classes were combat training sessions in disguise. At the Desert Palms facility, former Brigadier General Patricia Winters led her knitting circle in deploying a quantum entanglement net that disabled an entire Kryvax battle group. Her carefully coded knitting patterns had been sharing military intelligence with other communities for years. "We didn't retire," Regina explained to the increasingly desperate Admiral Kraz. "We just got better at hiding in plain sight. Did you really think we'd spend our golden years playing bingo when we could be preparing to defend our planet?" The Kryvax Empire's mighty invasion force found itself outmaneuvered at every turn by elderly humans whose decades of military experience had only grown sharper with age. Their apparent frailty had concealed a level of strategic brilliance that no alien force had anticipated. James coordinated with the global network as more retirement communities joined the fight. The Autumn Gardens Bridge Tournament just took out their 6th drop ship. Apparently, their Canasta group developed some interesting modifications to their mobility scooters. In orbit, Admiral Kraz faced a decision. His mighty invasion force had been systematically dismantled by an enemy that had spent decades preparing in plain sight. Every attempt to regain control was met with increasingly sophisticated resistance from people who'd spent their entire careers outthinking and outfighting superior forces. "Sir," Vex reported, "we're receiving similar reports from every continent. These retirement communities, they're not just defending themselves. They're launching coordinated counteroffensives using technology we didn't think this species possessed." Regina's voice came through once more, "Admiral, your forces are surrounded by the most experienced military minds on Earth. We've had decades to plan, prepare, and perfect our strategies. Would you like to discuss terms, or should we show you what our Tai Chi class can really do?" Admiral Kraz stood in Pine Valley's community center, his crystalline eyes taking in the surreal scene before him. Regina Thompson sat calmly at the head of a table laid out for afternoon tea, complete with delicate china cups and freshly baked scones. The formal surrender of the mighty Kryvax Empire was about to be negotiated over Earl Grey and Petit Fours. "I must admit," Kraz said, settling into a chair clearly reinforced for his alien physiology, "in 12 systems and 3 centuries of conquest, we've never encountered anything quite like this." "That's because you made the same mistake everyone makes," Regina replied, pouring tea with steady hands. "You saw our age as weakness rather than recognizing it as experience." Around them, the evidence of the Kryvax Empire's defeat was being catalogued by elderly humans who moved with military precision despite their gray hair and comfortable cardigans. Their advanced weapons had been neutralized by technology disguised as retirement home amenities, their strategies countered by veterans who'd spent decades preparing for exactly this scenario. "Your civilization's approach to aging is unique," Vex observed, carefully holding a teacup in one of his secondary appendages. "We thought dedicating resources to maintaining the elderly was a sign of cultural weakness." Margaret Wells smiled as she added a sugar cube to her tea. "Instead, you found an entire generation of military veterans with nothing but time to plan, prepare, and innovate. We didn't stop being who we were just because we got older." The terms of surrender were surprisingly straightforward. The Kryvax Empire would withdraw its forces, but more importantly, would enter into a cultural exchange program focused on understanding humanity's approach to aging and experience. "We've already begun receiving requests from other retirement communities," James reported, reviewing data on his disguised quantum tablet. Apparently, the Sunny Meadows facility in Australia has some fascinating proposals for adapting their aqua aerobics technology for peaceful purposes. Outside, retired engineers were already working with bewildered CRIVAX technicians, explaining how their seemingly primitive medical devices had been modified to generate quantum fields capable of disabling advanced alien technology. The craft room had been revealed as a sophisticated research and development facility where decades of classified military experience had been put to creative use. Perhaps, Regina suggested, setting down her teacup, your empire might benefit from establishing its own retirement communities. Think of the potential when you combine centuries of experience with the time and freedom to innovate. Admiral Cross found himself nodding. The human concept of retirement wasn't about declining into uselessness, it was about creating space for experienced individuals to continue contributing on their own terms. Every bingo game could be a tactical planning session. Every craft project could advance military technology. Every social gathering could strengthen defense networks. The next generation of CRIVAX warriors, he mused, might learn more from your bridge clubs than from our military academies. As the sun set over Pine Valley, the scene had transformed from battlefield to classroom. Elderly humans taught alien warriors the art of disguising strength as weakness, of turning everyday objects into extraordinary tools, and most importantly, of never underestimating the power of experience. The invasion that was meant to exploit humanity's supposed weakness had instead revealed one of its greatest strengths. In retirement communities across the globe, a generation of veterans had proven that their greatest contributions to planetary defense had come not in their youth, but in their golden years. You know, Regina remarked as she reviewed the final peace treaty, we still have our regular movie night scheduled for tomorrow. Perhaps your crew would enjoy joining us. I believe we're showing The Art of War, with some rather interesting commentary from our residents. In the end, the CRIVAX Empire's greatest defeat became its most valuable lesson. True strength lies not in the power of weapons or the might of armies, but in the accumulated wisdom of those who have spent lifetimes preparing for moments exactly like this. And somewhere in the galaxy, the first CRIVAX retirement community was already being planned, complete with shuffleboard courts that might or might not conceal quantum defense systems.